Doctors of Reddit, what was the craziest case of patient paranoia that you have ever seen? My father was a doctor, dermatologist. Had a patient who accused him of prescribing a non-existent experimental drug for a supposed condition that he was never diagnosed with. Tried to take him to court and lost. Sent a threatening letter after, reported to police. After the police confronted him about it, he dropped a homemade fruit basket with a single bullet on top of the fruit at the front step of the office addressed, but not postmarked, to my father with a creepy unsigned apology note. Basket was immediately shown to police. About a month later my father received a letter from the guy stating he had seen my name in the paper sports section, local golf tournament results, and that he knew I would be playing at an upcoming tournament, where the start times were published. There was a police presence at the tournament, something that never happens, because my father reported it. My dad's nurse's husband was a local detective and pretty much followed me the whole day with my dad. The police found the guy in the parking lot unarmed, and he was arrested, then eventually committed to a psych hospital for some time. There's still a restraining order against him to this day, but this was over 15 years ago, and the guy seems to have disappeared. I didn't know any of this until about 5 years ago, but I remember my dad having a single bullet in his bedside table, even though he never owned any guns. When I asked him about it, all he would say was someone gave it to me. Former psych nurse here. I once had a patient who believed he was Satan. Since Satan was nude, so was he. He spent much of his time in a private secure room, and when it was time to go for some fresh air around the unit, we had to bargain with him to wear a robe. Not a doctor, but my grandfather had Lewy body dementia. Unlike other dementia, Lewy body has a strong hallucination component. Here are a few of my favorites. My grandma was having an affair with the pharmacist. She was also running a whorehouse, which would be okay, but she wouldn't give him a cut. The shadow men had built an exact replica of his house, but on wheels, to use as a brothel, naturally, and were stealing his electricity to power it. That's why his switches, which powered outlets, would flip and nothing would happen. They had also dug in a basement under his house, which he attempted to access one night by cutting a hole in the floor with an axe. If he took anyone looking for this alternate house, they would move it to make him look crazy. The staff at the care home he eventually was placed in was treating all the food with embalming fluid, so he couldn't eat it. He also had another doctor tell him that the medications he was on were us poisoning him, and that he didn't need to take them anymore. It was a roller coaster. Student nurse here, but I still go to the hospital for internships. Had a patient come to the ER with really high blood sugar, type 2 diabetic. I asked her if she was taking her medications, and she said that she didn't want to. Thinking she was referring to some type of bad side effect, I asked her what medication she was taking, and it was diabetes. Chlorpropamide for those of you who aren't Brazilian. Pretty standard 2 medication, not a lot of bad side effects other than some skin rashes. I asked her why she wasn't taking the pills, and she said, look at the name. I can't take something that has diabo, devil in Portuguese, in the title. If I have to go, I shall go without any contact with these devilish chemicals, like the Lord intended. It was hard not to laugh at that one, but I kept my shit together. Not a doctor, but I work with elderly people prone to delirium. We once had an 80-year-old academic at our institute. I think he was some sort of professor and obviously well spoken. Also mostly appeared to be very lucid at first glance. For months, he'd harbored the idea that he was at the center of an elaborate ritual conducted by a medieval sort of witch. Because of her spells, he would constantly phase in and out of consciousness, imagining to smoke a pipe and talk to people that weren't there at all, etc. He further claimed that he had found that there were pentagrams drawn in lemon juice and goat urine all over his apartment. His mouth was constantly deathly dry because she would fill it with the ashes of cursed scrolls and parchment. The witch planned to extract something from his body to create a flying ointment or something for her broomstick. Anyways, it was absolutely wild and nonsensical. The crazy thing was, his delusions turned out to be warranted. It was later found that his granddaughter for months had actually tried to poison him with incrementally increasing doses of belladonna extract. Former nurse here I have too. There was a guy with a rash on his feet, lower legs, seemed like a perfectly normal guy until the doctor walked in. He then proceeds to calmly tell the doctor the rash is caused by his neighbors pumping gas into his apartment via the ducts. He believed it was a dense gas that stayed on the floor and that's where the rash came from. Second lady I'm sure had psychiatric issues. She came in for anal bleeding. She believed this was caused by someone coming into her house at night injecting a knockout drug into her buttocks and then anally raping her. She had pictures of her clothes behind that she had showed the police in an attempt to make a report. She did not like the diagnosis of pimples and hemorrhoids. Psych nurse had a patient that thought that the queen was a lizard person who swapped his penis with another one. Also had a patient who thought we were drugging the air through the vents. Oh, and someone who thought his cat was spying/stalking him for Trump. Oblig not a doctor, but one of my close family members is. A lady came in with her infant, 0 to 12 months, indicating that the government was going to take her baby away if said infant didn't get the heart surgery the baby needed because they would think she was neglecting it. She had visible signs of self-inflicted injury and, I forget the name of it, but the one where people rip out clumps of their own hair and eat it. My family member treated the baby. When I say treated, I mean they did the rundown on the baby and verified that it was in good health. Social workers were called with respect to whether there were any orders out or issues regarding the welfare of the kid, and nothing. The kid wasn't on anyone's radar for social services or any of that. Then things get interesting. Police show up. Husband had called the police and said wife was acting erratically on the phone, but when he got home, she and baby were not there. I gather police protocol normally involves checking hospital admissions so people get found quickly. Wife subsequently failed, both with officers and physicians present, to correctly identify day of the week and current location. I'm gonna omit the whole after story, but the end of the story is just that a couple months later, husband, baby, and wife/mother are all happy/healthy, and it's about as positive of an ending as an acute mental health incident can have, given the circumstances. Surgical nurse here had a patient return to the or who had some hardware, plates, and screws put in their elbow for a fracture. The hardware was causing them discomfort, so instead of talking to her surgeon they decided to try and remove one of the screws with a knife and screwdriver. I got the case for the wound cleanup and replacement of said exposed screw. One of the strangest ones I've had yet. I'm a nurse scribe. The most paranoid patients I've seen are the ones who are very high on meth. Usually it involves them believing that bugs are crawling on or out of their skin. Don't do meth or heroin. Those drugs are bad and catch. Edit. Oh, I forgot. There was another meth patient who decided to take out his teeth with a butter knife. He partially succeeded. Not a medical professional, however I work in an ER. One patient stated that she needed to stop the destruction of the world as aliens were coming to take everyone she loved. She stated that at midnight, if she didn't get to a certain park, we're all fucked. Nurses sedated her as she began to hurt herself, slamming head into the wall. My wife is a clinician and had a person come in with the idea that Donald Trump Twitter feed was actually an alien artificial intelligence that infects everyone who reads it. I currently have a patient who believes he is an undercover police officer and has been sent to infiltrate my traumatic brain injury clinic. Brain injury is interesting. Not a doctor, but I had one call me because my ex-wife was displaying behavior that indicated she may do harm to herself and others. She went to her, let me count here, third ex-husband's apartment, broke in and screamed at him about how he was cheating on her. They were already divorced at the time, so yeah. After sacking his apartment and not finding anything, she zeroed in on his rosary and accused him of cheating on her with the Virgin Mary. My gran had patient paranoia a few months before she died. I was around 13, so I wasn't told, but recently, as I'm studying psychosis at school, so my parents told me. Apparently, she believed that the doctor tortured guinea pigs in front of her as she was getting medication. It was really sad, because I remember her being so nice and gentle and definitely not someone that could have been suffering, but we don't know what caused this paranoia as she was good friends with the nurse. Not a doctor, but my parents threatened to take me to a psychiatrist multiple times after I tried telling them that my older sister swallowed our pet hamster. I swear I'm not making this stuff up, but now I think I sound like a crazy person to my family.
Goodbye. Goodbye.